Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life.
Gosh, people will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone, so we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
It was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural then and now.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Buffering the Vampire Slayer, where we talk about the many incredible pursuits of our favorite hero, Jonathan. This week, I have a very special guest host, friend of the pod, podcaster extraordinaire, Vanity Fair writer, and all-around dreamboat, Joanna freaking Robinson. We have a fashion watch from Kate Leth, a sexual tension award segment from Jenny Owen Youngs, and a song with 4 different voices, including a new addition to the Buffering universe with the voice of Giles. Wonder who's it gonna be? Not me, even though that was a wonderful vocal performance I just delivered. Okay, we're gonna get right into the episode today. I just have a couple things for you. First, the Sexual Tension Award winners from last episode. So we are talking about Who Are You? I know you all like when we do the winners together so you can get Jenny's responses in real time, live time. So today I texted Jenny. I asked her for her response to these results. First, I'm going to tell you the results. 3%, last place, Faith and the Lady Dancer. Third place, 13% for Joyce and Stevedore Giles. 33%, maybe the first time that they have not won when they've been nominated, Willow and Tara. And 50% for Faith and Champagne Popped Spike. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to say that. It just happened. Jenny's response to me was, oh, hell yeah, Leathergate. My main response is, and then she sent me a photo of us doing our live taping at PodCon, where her face is flat on the table as I read aloud the monologue Faith delivers to Spike via Buffy's body. So that's kind of what you'd get if Jenny were sitting here with me right now while I was doing this intro. I hope you enjoyed. Okay, you know what we're going to jump right into? Yeah, you do. Cool. So spiders are going to eat every human on the planet within less than a year if they decide to. So it's really up to them. So far, they've decided not to. But apparently, this is a report from The Sun, a UK paper. It's always the UK, given spooky news. And there's a horrible picture of a spider in this article that I just scrolled down to, and I'm upset. Put a call out to all of you to send me some stories about like ghosts and vampires so that I don't have to talk. The picture of this spider I'm looking at is so upsetting, so that I don't have to look at pictures of spiders or think about spiders. Okay, here's a little bit from this news story. At the moment, spiders mostly eat the things we know they eat, insects, but there's some big ones that snack on lizards, birds. Some even eat small mammals. I'm so upset. Oh, according to a report published on the Washington Post, experts say if you add up, this is the most upsetting thing of all time, the weight of all the food eaten by the world's entire spider population in a single year, It's less than the combined weight of every human on the planet. I'm like itching my arms and back and stomach as I tell you this news. Martin Nefeller of the University of Basel in Switzerland and Klaus Birkhofer of Lund University in Sweden published their findings in the Science of Nature journal this month. If spiders talk to each other and they decided, you know what, fuck these guys, they could just get together and eat us all. Is that true? Is this real? Why did I ever start doing this segment? That's your spooky news. Okay, couple tiny things. We have merchandise. We have brand new Kelly Green Smash the Demon Lizard Patriarchy t-shirts and hoodies. I have the hoodie. I'm obsessed with it. It's so awesome, so you should get one. We also have socks that are back in stock and, just a ton of fun things. Support your local alewives, the Girl Gang t-shirt, enamel pins aplenty, even a vinyl of I Will Remember You with so many beautiful songs, So there's a lot of fun things over there. BufferingTheVampireSlayer.com. Just click on shop. You can also support us by going over to our Patreon page. We have 4 levels now. They're all pretty rockin'. The new level gets exclusive merchandise. This latest round was pretty exciting, I have to say. You get the music in advance if you're at the $5 level or higher. It's just a really fun place to be. And of course, if you're not already listening to our sister podcast, Angel on Top, you should be. Brittany and Laura literally get better at talking about this show and humanity every week. I'm obsessed with them. You should be too. It's a really, really fun way to do a rewatch or a first watch of Angel. Last but not least, thank you to Lauren Klein, our sound engineer, who you can follow on Instagram if you want, Lauren Taylor Klein. She's always making us sound good, so thanks, Lauren. All right, you ready to get into our favorite topic of conversation? Jonathan? Me too. Hello and welcome to Buffering the Vampire Slayer, a podcast where we'll be watching and discussing every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer one by one, spoiler-free. I am Kristin Russo.
And I am a very special guest, Joanna.
Really, and I feel like in this universe, Joanna, now you've become the Jonathan because you're the special guest. So
he literally says that. I will be the special guest.
Yeah.
That's what he says. I love it.
This week, if you didn't already guess, we're talking about season 4, episode 17, Superstar. Stay tuned at the end of this podcast every week for an original song written by Jenny Owen Youngs, recapping the Buffy episode we are discussing.
Superstar was written by Jane Espenson and directed by David Grossman, and it originally aired on April 4th, 2000.
Made it to the 2000s with us, Joanna.
We made it out of the 90s.
This is the one where Buffy senses that something is amiss when Jonathan becomes a hero to everyone in Sunnydale.
I don't know why that would be a miss, because Jonathan is so handsome. Jonathan so great.
Jonathan is so dapper in this episode.
Extremely.
Which obviously is intentional, but because when we start with the previously on, it's like Jonathan is like sweating in a church tower with a gun, and then like we cut and he's like turning around in his chair in a suit and looking all.
They put his hair up. You never underestimate the up hair.
Yeah.
You'll notice by the end of the episode when he's back in his like dumpy striped shirt that they like have combed his hair back down so he's got like the nerd bangs, like the late 90s nerd bangs. And it's like, no, bro, just put the hair up.
Yeah, take a hint from your superstar self.
Put the hair up.
But this is, so I, of course, didn't watch the series in real time. And I wonder, as someone who did, you did, right? You watched it in real time. Do you remember like seeing this previously on and being like, what the fuck? Because
I don't know, maybe I didn't watch the previously ons, but I do remember like getting to the opening credits and like losing my mind, and it's still one of my favorite things about Buffy ever.
Can I tell you that I did not notice until this most recent watch?
Oh, really?
Somehow I must be taking notes, and like when the credits start, I'll like take some notes on the whatever.
You're like, I know the theme song. This is fine.
Right, I know what happens here.
Yeah.
It was literally yesterday when I watched a tape with you that I was like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
The credits are all Jonathan Splice.
Oh, so good. Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about that today where there would be no way for this episode to be, I don't know how much like a shock and surprise, because I was on the Buffy boards when I watched it live in the late 90s, early aughts, and we would get like episode descriptions. I remember it's the first show I ever like would read the episode description in advance and stuff like that on a message board. But I don't remember being, I don't know, quote unquote spoiled for this. And I'm like, I was just thinking now, like, there's no way like this would be a surprise to anyone because the way that TV works now and the way we're all, the fandom is all dialed in on the internet, like, you know, like Joss would have had to give an interview where he's like, this season we're going to do a Jonathan episode. You know what I mean? Right. And like Danny Strong would have given an interview, you know, like it all would have like come out beforehand. Yeah. So there's a beauty to like being surprised by what this episode is, which is a sort of, it's so interesting. You were surprised, right, Kristin, that I wanted to talk about this episode?
Yes. And I don't know what my feelings are in this episode. I feel like I go back and forth. But yeah, when I was like, Joanna, do you want to do an episode with me? It's going to be Superstar. Like I had an apology in my voice. And you were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, hell yes. I love Superstar. Superstar is like sort of a Zeppo episode, right? But then it also, and we won't talk about it because we don't spoil things on this podcast, but it also just like lays track for a lot of themes that Buffy will explore in the future. And in many ways, I think it's starting to show you how ahead of its time Buffy was in certain things. And so I like this episode, especially in the larger context of the show. So I can understand why your listeners watching for the first time are like, a Jonathan episode, who signed up for that? But like, I think those of your listeners, I hope those of your listeners who have seen the whole thing will be like, it is interesting what I feel like you can see them getting interested in certain ideas that will play out later. That's probably all we can say without spoiling.
I'm so frustrated because I want to know like which ones. But yeah, so that makes sense. And that is probably why I'm like, I think it's okay, but I don't really know because as you know, I'm familiar with the series, but once we get past the episode we're talking about or like the season we're talking about, I'm not that familiar. Right. Like I know the big things that are coming, but it's really the first critical look I've done at the series ever.
That's what makes you so fun to listen to.
You'll never get this version of me again, listeners.
Fleeting. It's so fleeting. But what I was going to say is I was going back through and reading, I don't think I've ever done this before in an episode, and I don't know why I haven't because it's very helpful that there's like a Wikipedia entry for every episode of Buffy, which has, most of them have like some fun trivia on them. And, or maybe I've read them before. Anyway, I forgot. For me, it was like the first time. And I was reading a snippet from Noel Murray, who still writes for a number of great outlets, was writing for the AV Club at the time this came out. And he wrote about the episode. He said, like, it's an interesting blend of a standalone episode and the overarching, like, main storyline, you know, because the Adam storyline gets a little advanced. Yeah. The Riley Buffy stuff gets advanced. All of that happens. It's not like a standard, like, you know, standalone, isolated sort of episode. Totally. Similarly to the Zeppo, which also sort of progresses some things. Right. In that episode. And Noel Murray at the time was like, I don't know. I think he was like, it was a, you know, a bit of a challenge to keep everything together. This reality versus this reality and how they're blending. And I don't know if I would rather this had just been like a really traditional standalone where everything was different. Yeah. Sort of like some of the alternate universe stuff we saw in like season 3.
Right. When we go to Cleveland. Yeah. Exactly.
So like in this Jonathan world, everything's different. There is no shrimp or whatever. And there's no Adam and there's no initiative and there's no Faith swapping bodies with Buffy and whatever it is. Right. This is, that's almost an easier script to write, I think. And I think this is more challenging. And I actually like it because I think it gives nuance to what Jonathan does, which we can all agree is like a bad thing to do. Right. But especially the way it interacts with the Buffy and Riley plotline, like not just so obviously not a malicious thing to do.
Right. And I mean, like, you know, we're skipping to the end a little bit, but when you learn like how he came to do this, at least if we assume that Jonathan's telling the truth. Right. I don't think that he was aware of some of the darker implications that his magic or this magic would have. You know, he goes out of his way to say, like, the guy who told me about this kind of like glossed over the whole monster thing. And this is true to, I mean, the last time we saw Jonathan in any like developed capacity, because he's been on since then, but not with a deeper bit, was Earshot, which is essentially the same thread, just played a different way, right? It's like he feels alone. He wants friends.
But that's the echo of this episode. I really do love this episode. That's the echo of this episode. It ends, once again, we're just giving to the end, but like, I do want to pick apart a little bit of what you said, and we will talk about it again, I think, when we get to it. But the end message of the show for both Buffy and Jonathan is like, you can't just fix it with one big thing.
Right.
So like Buffy showing up to save the day at the end of Earshot didn't fix Jonathan. Right. And so, you know, and even though he was at prom and like in a position to do something nice for her, that doesn't mean like his problems are gone at the end of the hour.
Right.
You know?
And what's incredible about you saying that is that's even nestled into the episode.
Right.
Where in his version, in his wish, it's actually him receiving the award. So like that beautiful moment we saw, we know now that Jonathan was like there for it, but also was sad and like wanted to be the one that was getting the recognition.
Yeah. But like it's I don't know, it's interesting. I just find the Jonathan character to be one of the most fascinating characters on Buffy, because not just because I really like Danny Strong, which I do, but like because how he crops up at the very beginning just as a background player, which they did not have plans to expand him the way they did. But then what they wound up doing with him like really pays off in the way that, like, I don't know. Did you see the skateboarding documentary Minding the Gap?
No.
Nominated for an Oscar this year. It's on Hulu if you're interested and all. But like this kid, when the guy who directed it was a skateboarder as a teenager and just happened to like film his friends a lot. And then the documentary follows them for decades.
Wow.
And it's just sort of like, it just happened to be that this kid who has like a knack for filmmaking and skateboarding happened to film his friends when they were like teens.
Yeah.
And so we just happen to have all this stuff for Jonathan that informs a long, long arc on this show, which wasn't intentional, but nonetheless, I think they took advantage of.
Yeah.
So,
Joanna, I love doing episodes with you.
Kristin, I love doing episodes with you.
It's just so great, you know? Oh, I just love the perspective that you bring, because you have, I mean, especially based on like what you do in your life day to day, I feel like you bring things to the series that Jenny and I do not have at all from what we do day to day. And it's fun.
Right, but I don't have the appreciation for hunks that Jenny has.
This is true.
And there was like a real hunk moment in this episode, and I felt like...
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Right. Also, we will have a sexual tension award segment from Jenny, and, you know, when she's put in charge of things, I cannot imagine that there won't be some hunks nominated.
Hunk Talk 2019. All right.
Oh, so we talked about the credits. Something that we didn't talk about yet, and I'm sure that we will, but that I noticed right away is their wardrobe, like how the costuming in this episode has shifted. And we'll hear from Kate. We'll bring Kate in a little later, but it's really a cool choice, I think, to make it's an alternate universe. Buffy's hair is curly once again, just as it is in apparently every alternate reality.
Yeah.
But they all look a little different. They all look almost like a drawing of their character. Like there's like harder lines.
Oh, so interesting. I
mean, we'll see what Kate says. I'm not an expert on this. We'll see what Kate says when we get to her. But that's what I noticed, that it just seemed like, I don't know, Buffy's jacket, you know, had like hard angles on it. It just looked visually different to me.
One of my favorite things about looking at the Wikipedia entry for this episode is that it literally had a bullet point about Buffy's hair, which is my first note in my notes, which is like, Buffy's hair is curly. And it was like, Buffy's hair is curly, as it was in this episode. And in this episode, like, it was like someone's on hardcore Buffy hair watch. And I feel like we should have some kind of infographic or chart. Because
You're right.
You know what I mean? Because like there should definitely be like the Baby Bangs entry.
Yes.
We're going to need, you know, like...
We need the Beer Bad entry,
yeah,
of course.
the Beer Bad entry. There's, like, the variations of blonde that she goes through and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There may or may not be an important haircut later. I couldn't possibly say. You know, like, I think Buffy Hair Watch is an infographic that I would enjoy.
Well, you've put it out there, Joanna, and you know what happens when you put things out there.
Your listeners are
they often come back.
Handy.
So one of the reasons I was also excited to talk to you about this is because literally my notes about like the sort of style of this episode, some of the things they do stylistically. I've written like Mission Impossible, James Bond. Like I know that they're referencing things, and my guess was James Bond, but I have no idea because I know
you've never seen it.
Nothing. I think I've seen Mission Impossible. I don't think I've seen James Bond. Like what I know of James Bond is from like Austin Powers.
You're talking a lot about like the soundtrack, right?
Yeah, the soundtrack and
but you know
some
what,
of the like when Jonathan is blindfolded and then they like pan and it's like three dudes with three apples on their heads. It just seemed like there was some style stuff happening.
Well, like, you know what the theme song actually sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Detective Angel. That's exactly like if Jenny is not busy, which I know she is, and wants to do like a Superstar Jonathan sort of like jingle, right? Like,
wow.
He's just like, that's his theme song is basically Detective Angel, like this whole time.
I am so excited that you have said this because I already commissioned Jenny to do a jingle later. Spoiler, new jingle. It's not even a new jingle. It's just a repurposed Detective Riley because there's a Detective Riley moment.
Nice.
So now I'll ask her if she can also do, I mean, it's just, she just has to delay the vocal over the same track. She can do it. You can do it, right, Jenny?
Superstar Jonathan. Easy peasy. But yeah, you're right. It's Spy. I mean, but I think it's like spoof of Spy.
Yes.
It's like,
I guess it is like Austin Powers.
It's Austin Powers is like Get Smart. It's like, the old TV show Spy. Like, there's like a whole bunch of stuff that it's referencing there, but I don't think it's like, but it's like the spoof of.
Right.
It's an adolescent boy's like dream of what spying is.
It's
so
amazing
good.
too. I think they execute it brilliantly and throughout. Like it's not even just like a little thing here, a little thing there. It's sort of like threaded through the whole episode. I wrote in all caps, the music.
We need to talk really quickly about the opening credits.
Yes, please.
And your favorite part of it.
So my favorite part is not the end, though I love it. Yeah. It's definitely, I think it's the cut before the end cut. I can't remember what he is doing, though. Do you remember all the things that Jonathan is doing?
One of them is he's defusing a bomb.
Yeah.
That's for sure happens. There's a lot of like posing with his like little crossbow.
I think there's a crossbow moment, but I really appreciate the interspersing. And I'm sure that some of you, maybe you, I don't know what they had to is they had to take things out to fit him in.
One would guess in order to make the music. We need a side-by-side.
I know this because when Jenny and I do live events, I put us in, and it's really hard to do. I mean, I know that the credit editors are much more skilled than I am.
No.
But no. But it's hard to keep the rhythm of the music and like have things that you put in land in the proper way, and they do. So I just, I actually, when I watched this, I was like, oh my God, the next time Jenny and I do a live show and I do credits, I'm going to use these credits because then I can just pull Jonathan out.
Put you in the Jonathan
and put us in the Jonathan spot.
Can you please be defusing a bomb?
Yes.
Great.
Actually, Jenny and I will try to get footage of ourselves doing all of the things Jonathan is doing.
And then the slow-mo walk to camera, please.
Oh my God.
Thank you. So, and the other thing in the opening credits, it's been a while since we recorded. I don't know if Emma Caulfield and James Marsters were in the opening credits. They were like almost just about in the opening credits when the last time we recorded. Right. But I forgot that Mark Blucas is already and like also and so like he showed up and I was like, I don't like Riley, and I was like, ugh, Blucas. Fucking Blucas is here in the credits. So,
My fear, so I talked to Jenny about this already, and her and I will definitely be talking about it the next time we do an episode together. But I tried really hard to get Mark Blucas to surprise Jenny at prom. And my fear, and he, his agent was in conversation with me or whatever, and he wasn't able to do it. And the thing I'm most afraid of is that he was like, oh, this sounds so cool. Let me check the podcast out. And then he heard me being like, fucking Riley sucks. And here's a jingle, and also here's me as in a Wonder Bread costume for Halloween as well. So I'm hoping that Mark Blucas somewhere knows that I love and adore him.
That's true. I like Blucas, honestly, and I've seen him in other things. I believe he's in the Cameron Diaz, Tom Cruise joint Night and Day. No, I like Mark Blucas when he shows up and plays a firefighter and things, but I just don't like Riley. It's not Mark's fault.
It's nice to be in shared company. I really struggle with my current co-host on our Riley opinions. So a note that I made early on is about Jonathan's. So I'm going to play a jingle and then discuss it. The patriarchy! I'm playing the patriarchy jingle in a general amorphous kind of way, which doesn't usually happen, because I'm in one moment with, not one moment, but like on one hand with Jonathan, I feel like, oh, like I don't like the way he's sort of like daddying about, like, don't worry, I have the advice you need and I have the whatever you need.
Oh, it's what's important is that you tried your best.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes me feel men feelings.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But what's interesting about what the episode does is that it's not just the women. Like, all of the characters in the universe are spoken to like that. And all of the characters in the universe are like hiding away their Jonathan swimsuit calendars, for example.
So we're here to talk about Rupert Giles right now. The fact that like Jonathan had the audacity to call him Rupert. I was like, where do you get off calling him Rupert? But like, it's like, it's a boy's idea of like what, you know, how a man talks to another man. He's like, you know, good news, we don't have any unholy feast of something surprising us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he makes Giles laugh. Like, but that's the thing is like, it's disrespectful on the one hand to call Giles Rupert if you are not like sleeping with him or whatever. But like,
you're not Olivia.
Right. But on the other hand, you know, his fantasy is to be important to these people. And so he like massively respects Giles.
Yeah.
Right. And so he feels so inferior to people all the time. So it's not that he wants like mastery over these people, which he like somewhat does, but like he just wants them to like admire them. And he thinks that this is, you know, what admiration is.
Yeah.
And that's what he explains at the end of the episode. That's why this episode, I'm glad you played the patriarchy jingle. I think we should talk about like the way that Jonathan daddies the whole episode. But at the same time, it's like, it's not clear-cut evil. If it were clear-cut evil, he would be trying to like, you know, fuck Buffy or like whatever it is. And he's not. I mean, we can talk about the twins if we want to, but like he's not doing that. He's not trying to like rip things apart. He's genuinely trying to do what he thinks is good.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up and brought like the twins up, because as I was watching it, especially this last time taking my notes and everything, I was like, this is really interesting because his idea is not sexualizing really anything. I mean, it almost felt like the twins were there as like an afterthought. Like it didn't even seem like it fit with Jonathan's version of it.
Wasn't important to him. Yeah.
He wanted to like save the world and be respected and feel that people needed him.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It's sad and it's sweet and it's disturbing. It's all of those things together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like, I don't want to give him a free pass. It's not at all what I'm trying to do. I just think like why I like this episode is because it's like, it's a more insidious kind of evil. It's an evil. It's when we talk about young boys or young men and toxic masculinity, I think, you know, people think that when you have sympathy for them being sort of swept up by social norms, social expectations, that you're giving them a free pass.
Right.
I just want to make it really clear. I'm at no point giving Jonathan a free pass on this. I just think that it's like you can have sympathy for him and be like, this is so fucked up, you know?
Yeah. And that it's an interesting twist on like what a dude would wish for when the genie comes out of the bottle.
What the power fantasy is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's not the typical power fantasy.
Yeah.
There's elements of it, certainly. And like I think maybe that's why I'm annoyed with the twins being in it, because I feel like the rest of it is like more nuanced and delicate.
I agree. I don't love the twins being there.
But yeah, okay. So this conversation is so delightful. I feel like we don't even need to go scene by scene like I normally do. But I do want to talk about the collaging that's happening by our witches.
Yes.
90s collaging, they go together, but also like queer women and collaging is like a thing that exists.
Is it?
Yes. And well, I mean, I guess I operate in one segment of being a queer woman, which is that I'm super good friends with Reese Bernard, who runs Autostraddle. And Reese is the best. Like, if you ever need a collage commissioned, call her.
Okay.
She's amazing at it. And I run A Camp, right? I co-direct A Camp. And there's always at least one, if not 2 to 3 to 4 collaging workshops. Like, queer women fucking love to collage.
It's so funny. My friend who happens to be a queer woman she does these vision boards is like a big thing that she does, which is essentially like a collage with intention. And like, I was just over at her house the other day and she was like, here's my 2019 and like showing it to me. Yes. And so when I first watched this episode, I forgot what they were doing. So you just see them like tearing out things and they're like making a collage. But I wrote down vision board ? And then I was like, oh no, it's a Jonathan collage.
I know. I actually had that same progression. I was like, because at first I forgot what they were doing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so dead on queer women and collaging.
Yeah. Oh, it's
but they're collaging. And I don't want to like hit this too many times because like we've already had the conversation about like the patriarchy and like how this is kind of a twist on what a male fantasy might be or whatever. But I also think like, you know what? It's the early 2000s. We have these two queer characters that are like just kind of coming out of hiding or whatever. Like we're transitioning from witchcraft to actual like, oh, we think we might like each other. And the fact that nothing was done with that in a weird or uncomfortable way in this fantasy of Jonathan's is also pretty fucking great.
Yeah. I guess my question is like, does Jonathan get to watch the scenes that he's not a part of?
Ooh.
Because like, that's what I never thought that like he would be able to like review because he's off doing something else while this is happening. And so I don't feel like he goes home and watches like CCTV of like
right.
So he wouldn't need to have Willow and Tara like having sex or whatever. But what I do like about this scene is like you think it's completely independent of what's going on. You think they're having a chat.
Yes.
And then like they're also in the most like annoying Buffy's the most important person in the universe. They're having a chat about Buffy. And I'm like, is that what Willow and Tara would be talking about?
Right.
But then you pan out and you're like, oh, this is still a Jonathan scene.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So.
And I guess right, like not that he could watch this scene and that like they would be having sex, but more so that like when he interacts with anyone, their desire for him is like all equal. Yeah. And that like these queer witches are not put in any different category, right?
Right. Straight men and queer women
all alike.
All want Jonathan.
The playing field is leveled.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned a hunky moment.
I did.
I've gone through so many scenes. I don't mean to skip past anything you want to talk about. You mentioned a hunk, and boy, do we get this is, I think, the sweatiest and most shirtless we've seen Riley in combination, because we've seen him shirtless and injured, and we've seen him sweaty but partially clothed. This is
I feel like this is an infographic that also needs to be made. It's like the Riley shirtless spectrum or whatever. I love that you're like, we've seen this.
My note is just oops.
Oh,
because of shirtless men get an oops. I want to say, I'll post this on social media pretty soon, but I was looking, so as you and I are taping this, Joanna, tomorrow Jenny and I will be interviewing James Marsters. So I was looking for a picture of James to post to announce the interview. And I came upon a photo of Angel and Spike where they're like back to back and they're both wearing button-down shirts and they're both like both of them back to back. It's miraculous, and I cannot wait to share it with all of you.
I can't. So I was watching Indiana Jones recently, rewatching those movies wherein Harrison Ford like really does like to take his shirt off, especially in the second one. And like one of our drinking game rules was like drink for Indiana Jones nip slip, like basically. So anyway, oops.
Yes, a big oops.
Here's what I have in all caps in my notes.
Yes.
It's no shirtless Tai Chi. So like maybe the reason that Riley has been shy about taking his shirt off in this context is he knows that we will all be comparing them playing indoor foam basketball to like the sexy shirtless Tai Chi of Angel and Buffy fame. So sorry, bud.
He's seen some of like Buffy's scrapbooking of Angel's pecs.
Oh, he's watched season 2 and 3, I'm sure. I don't know if he watched season 1, but he says, I'm no Jonathan, but I'm doing okay, which is a great line. And all the lines, like all the little throwaways, like Jonathan lines are so great.
Jane.
Just like really integrated in there. But like, he's also no Angel, but he's doing okay. Anyway.
And this is one of the first, we have them collaging, but the basketball photo is one of the first cues of like, oh, they've changed out existing things for other things, like that, like Riley's balls poster is gone and in its place is a Jonathan photo, and which later, when the spell is undone, we see that beautiful laser beam go through Sunnydale and erase it all.
I forgot about how could I forget about the ball poster?
Oh,
and then Buffy and Willow have like the chocolate poster, right?
Yep, it's like the same poster, but it's like for girls and boys.
Right, they bought it at the same dorm poster sale. Yeah, absolutely.
Support for today's episode comes from OneSkin.
And if you have sensitive skin, you're going to want to hear about their scientifically proven topical supplements. Free from over 1,500 chemicals and preservatives that can make skin red, irritated, or itchy, their products are safe for sensitive skin. It's just one of the reasons they've earned the skin-safe seal of approval. They've also earned the Jenny Owen Youngs and Kristin Russo seal of approval, if I do say so myself, Jenny. I couldn't agree more. I've been using OneSkin for a few months, and after a few weeks, I remember it like it was yesterday. I texted Kristin, and I was like, maybe she's born with it. I looked in the mirror that morning and was like, oh, things are happening, and I am happy. I have used a million billion skin products, and I did not think that I was going to switch off of the skin like lotion, the moisturizer that I used and the under eye cream that I use, because I have used them for a little while and I really like them. And I've switched completely, which is a pretty big deal. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using code BUFFERING at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code BUFFERING. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, and if you can, please tell them that we sent you.
As a podcast network, our focus is bringing you shows you love to listen to. But we also sell merch related to those shows. And partnering with Shopify has made that both possible and simple for us to do. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor adventures, Shopify helps you sell everywhere because they've got you covered, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. What's so fantastic about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, they provide everything you need to get control of your business so you can take it to the next level. Businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/realm.
Hello, I'm Simon Jack.
And I'm Sing Sing.
And together we host Good Bad Billionaire, the podcast exploring the minds, the motives, and the money of some of the world's richest individuals.
Every episode, we pick a billionaire and we find out how they made their money.
And then we judge them. Are they good, bad, or just another billionaire?
Good Bad Billionaire from the BBC World Service.
Listen now wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
Okay, so something that I wrote about Riley is I know that I already know that he's still with the initiative, but for some reason this episode I was like, wait, he's still with the initiative? Like, I don't understand how that's a thing. Like, I know that he had his whole, like, I'm a soldier, I'm not a soldier, if I'm not a soldier, what am I? And Buffy was like, you're a man, or a good man, or whatever. But I don't understand what's happening now with like, they're trying to get Adam back, but have we all forgotten that they created Adam and it was, like, not a cool thing? You know what I mean? Am I missing a pice?
Well,
Joanna?
so she says this thing about, like, you're no longer eating, like, the food.
Yes.
Right? You're no longer taking the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
And so I think, and honestly, you know, the back half of season 4 is not the one I'm most expert in because I really don't care about Adam. But
who does?
Yeah, really. But I would guess that, like, you know, Riley should be in the initiative to try to get Adam back, to be like a guy on the inside, to, like, you know what they're doing, sort of thing.
It's just confusing because it seems like what we learned with Maggie Walsh was that Maggie was creating this thing and it didn't seem to have, like, good intentionality behind it.
Right, but isn't it sort of like the idea is that, oh, Maggie represented, like, the splinter worst of the initiative, and now with her not, like, there, we can be
back on track or
doing
whatever,
the good guy commando stuff, you know,
get that evil woman out of here, get it back to the men.
Bad intentions.
And the other big part of this scene is that Buffy, we're seeing, is weirded out by Riley because Riley has just slept with Faith in the body swap episode, Joanna, we had a big conversation. We got our listenership was very torn up about if body swap was representative of non-consensual anything, and I got all bent out of shape about it. I felt like body swap. So I would love you're shaking your head and nodding your head and what have you. I wanted to be able to view the body swap as something that was outside of the conversation on consent because I felt like not in the Riley Faith sex.
Oh,
we put that in its separate bin.
Okay,
that I think is a major consent issue.
Okay, great. Just being in someone else's body.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay, because I thought you were talking about the other thing, and I was like, "What's happening, Kristin?
Yeah,
Are we swapping bodies?"
Yeah.
I would say I would definitely call it a violation.
The body swap itself. Yeah.
It's a violation.
But it's like the character of Faith is evil, and this is a sci-fi fantasy show. I
guess I would hesitate to put it in the conversation with consent because there is like a good example in that episode of like talking about consent and that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't want to like, I don't know, muddy it with this other thing, which I would, call a violation and call like a, evil bad thing to do and all this sort of stuff like that. But like, I think to talk about consent if you want to, which of course I do want to, like, why not actually drill down on this other aspect of it?
This scene. And I think this is, not this scene because we're not in this episode, but this thing that they're still unpacking is really fucked up. And like, I think it's fucked up. Obviously we get more of the Buffy angle, but it's like, in this, it's more like
super
Buffy's.
fucked up what happened to Riley.
Yes.
We're not Riley fans, but we can like be like, we need to process like his trauma.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. Willow has such like an interesting and like borderline gross like description of like what happens, right? When she was like, when Faith's insides were in Buffy's outsides and he was inside, and you're like, Willow, what are you?
Willow, take a glass, take a sip of water. Where are you going?
Yeah.
But right. And that's something that we see like unfold throughout the episode. It's weird how it resolves to me. Like, it seems like there should have been a conversation and Buffy sort of shuts down that and is like, actually, no, now that I'm in your arms this time, I trust you and I trust that you're here for it. And it just, I don't know. I was like, but you were in his arms just yesterday. Is it really just the advice that Jonathan gave you? It just felt like it was a little glossed over in terms of like how they came out of that.
Well, especially, spoiler alert, for the episode that I hate that comes after this. So,
Oh, yeah. Jenny and Rishikesh Hirway are tackling that episode, so that's going to be a grand old time.
That's going to be fun.
Rishi's been very frustrated with us. He's like, really, another Riley episode? Could you fucking get me on any episode that's not about Riley?
That's so funny.
I like to make
sure.
Hey,
Joanna, do you want to talk about Why the Wild Things Are? No, I do not. I want to talk about Jonathan. Speaking of which, okay, so they're at my favorite Buffy location, which is the Espresso Pump.
Yes.
The one coffee shop in all of the one Starbucks town that is Sunnydale.
Yeah. Their branding is amazing, by the way. Like, I didn't notice the Espresso Pump, like how hard they had gone on being like a gas station. Like, the employees are wearing like gas station uniforms. And
now
like,
I kind of want an Espresso Pump gas station shirt.
Well,
right?
I might be able to make that happen.
Oh, dreams do come true. No, so Jonathan's actually giving Buffy like good advice. She's making his coffee for him though. Mm-hmm. So like, it's just tinged with, she's like sugaring his coffee for him.
We can play it again, Joanna. We can play it again.
Do it.
The patriarchy!
It's a giant coffee mug, which is very 90s Friends.
Yes.
Delightful, even though we're in the aughts. But yeah, and then we get Karen with K shows up.
Yes. Also, just before we get to Karen with a K, it is a giant coffee mug, but I would like to note that these are teenagers and these are people in college. She puts an entire canister of sugar in that coffee. Like, this is... There's so much. Watch how much sugar she puts in.
So gross.
Okay, so Karen with a K.
Karen with a K shows up. She shows up with his book, which is called O, Jonathan.
The perfect title.
It's beautiful.
The perfect title.
Oh, the only thing better is if they were to reference a 1999 film and on the marquee later we see Being Jonathan Levinson. Being John Malkovich came out in 99. I checked.
Wow. Yeah. Shit, that would have been good.
Yeah.
Oh, we needed you in the right.
No, it happened.
Wait, it does?
Yeah, at the very end, that laser that you talk about going through the town, it changes the marquee from Being Jonathan Levinson.
Oh my God, I didn't even notice. I didn't see it. Oh, so
like,
thank God they did get it.
They did it.
Great.
Phew. Thank you. Yeah, and so then we get Jonathan at the initiative. which is mostly there for like a height joke.
The height, yes. It's all height all the time.
It's a height joke.
And they even go, there's a line right after we see the height, like they finally brought in the big guns for Jonathan.
Just the way it's all, and like the way that Danny is just like, Danny Strong is such a sport, just like walks up and like exaggerates the like head tilt up sort of thing to just like go for it. And then I don't want to spoil anything, but like honestly, who cares about Adam? But like this is like actually an important conversation about Adam that's like nestled in this episode.
Yeah, the uranium
power core.
Adam doesn't eat food.
Yeah, I mean it's like actually quite insightful. Like that's the thing is like Jonathan is actually quite helpful.
Yeah, he reveals
in this role.
Totally,
you know?
totally.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
So keep that in the back of your minds, listeners. Adam doesn't need to. What's sad for me is that I really liked picturing Adam plugging himself into the wall to charge. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like he actually.
Do you think if
that.
Adam doesn't eat, he doesn't poop? Adam doesn't poop, right?
Adam definitely doesn't poop.
Yeah.
Although if Adam did poop, he would like be super down with like exploring that part about himself as well, you know?
Good times.
Why? That's all I have to say about Adam.
Sorry. Yeah, it's not great.
So Karen with a K.
Yeah, Karen with a K.
She's in the woods. Well, not the woods, but she's like in the outer ring of Jonathan's mansion.
Property, stalking him
in the rain.
Yeah.
And then the monster, the long-armed monster comes. That's really like the biggest feature of the monster that
Lumpy, I think is a description we get of him later.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Karen says that he's lumpy.
I think Tara calls him Lumpy.
Oh, it's Tara. That's right.
In a daze. She's just like, Lumpy.
Tara.
All right.
I can't wait till we get to her.
But yeah, so Karen with a K gets attacked. And meanwhile, at the Bronze, I also looked up, you know what else I looked up? Not just
the band.
Oh, no. I mean, I did, but not just when Being John Malkovich came out related to
Did you look up Jonathan.com?
No.
I did.
Is it great?
Hold on. Let me.
Oh, okay.
I did look up Jonathan.com.
All right.
It is a real thing. It's the website of Jonathan Costello, a second-year PhD student in computer science at the University of California, Davis. In his spare time, he plays the piano and 2v2 Rocket League. Jonathan also has a Twitch TV channel, which he uses about as often as he writes blog posts. Jonathan.com. I mean, it's literally what Jonathan.com would be.
Jonathan.com. First of all, props to Jonathan from UC Davis, my alma mater, for getting that URL. Locking it down.
Seriously.
And then not using it, but like not selling it also. Good job. No, so I looked up, because there's a swing band playing, right?
Yes, I wrote down what they're called somewhere.
So I looked up when the Gap Khaki commercial came out. Because like, you know, your younger listeners not like being drenched in the 90s the way that we were would be like, why is there a swing band performing here? And on the one hand, it's so that we can see like Danny Strong in this amazing white tux.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the swing movement was like such a thing in the late 90s, early aughts.
I completely forgot about that Gap commercial.
It was such a thing.
So when was it?
98.
98.
Yeah.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
It's also like, not They Might Be Giants. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, right? We're like doing the ska, like it's
Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Cherry Poppin' Daddies.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
God, it's the first time I've heard the title of that band as a person who has learned some things about what things mean. Fuck.
This band's called the Royal Crown Review, right?
Yes, the Royal Crown Review. I must have written that somewhere else, not here, but they are called the Royal Crown Review.
Here's what I wrote in all caps. It really bothers me when voice dubs for people don't sound like the people.
Yeah.
I actually thought this person to the point where I wrote down, is Danny actually singing in all caps?
And he's not, right?
He's not.
It's something, I wrote a note, I read.
The actor, the person who did the vocals is Brad Kane, who played Tucker Wells in The Prom.
Yes.
So it's Tucker's singing.
Is that nuts?
It's crazy. It's nuts. And he did a really good job, I don't know, intentionally or not, voice matching Danny Strong.
Yeah.
I think he sounds a lot like him.
You know what's funny is that I read the thing about this is the voice of the guy with the prom, but then I watched it and was like, oh, that must have been about something else. I truly still thought it was Danny Strong.
It sounds so much like him.
Singing.
Yeah.
So.
Here's my favorite thing about Danny Strong outside of, and I don't think we talked about this. I know we talked about, because I was on for Earshot. So
yes.
I know we talked about Jonathan before. But like, I don't think I was able to talk about it in the context of Superstar, which is that like Danny Strong himself has had like kind of a superstar career, right?
Oh my God, he like manifested it.
Yeah. because he's like, he co-created Empire. Like he has so he's got an Emmy for sure because he did some of those like political HBO movies. He screenwrote them. He co-created Empire. I think he's got a Golden Globe as well. He was like, I think he wrote Lee Daniels' The Butler. Like, Danny Strong, like going strong, you know what I mean? Showing up on Mad Men. But like that's what he does in his spare time is like guest star on things. And then he's just got this whole screenwriting career that like, love his work or not. Like, well, and I actually really love the stuff that he did for HBO. Like, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah. But do you think that he took the spell from the show?
Absolutely. There is a monster out there rampaging lumpily because Danny Strong is winning awards. Anyway, that's one of my that's a meta thing that I love about Superstar.
That's good and true. So at the Bronze, the things that I would like to talk about is that Anya, at first it's played like Anya is moaning. That Anya has said Jonathan's name, but then like as the scene progresses, it's like, oh, it's not just Anya who wants to have sex with Jonathan. Xander's into it.
Yeah.
And like Nick Brendan plays this fucking amazingly.
This is a good Xander episode.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is truly a good Xander episode. I'm here for Xander having crushes on all the dudes.
Absolutely.
All the time.
And just like all of his quips are good. I think it's because like, I come and go on Xander, but like maybe it's because like all the beta male energy is sucked up by Jonathan or something like that he's just free to like quip and it's fun. So,
and he's like, the moment that he has later on where he like reads the Latin from the book and sets it on fire, it's just like good and funny and
real good.
Yes. This is of course the scene where Buffy somehow just gets over everything that's happened.
Swing music solves all problems.
It could also be, Jenny's not here with us, so I will say it could also be the size of Mark Lucas's palms on Sarah Michelle Gellar's body, which seems to have a magical effect as well.
Or it could be Danny Strong's fingers on this trumpet, because another fun fact I learned is that while he did not sing the vocals, he was fingering that trumpet correctly because someone taught him. He like learned how to make sure he's not just like going like this, which is what you can't hear, listeners. You can't see me just like randomly air trumpeting.
Joanna is air trumpeting right now.
But that's what I would do if I were like, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, Joss. I'm just gonna be going like this, Whereas Danny Strong like learned the proper positioning.
So it's like foreshadowing for the rest of his career.
Absolutely,
he's fucking in,
following through.
He's in.
Danny's in it.
And then, of course, Karen stops the whole show. Well, really, Jonathan stops the show for Karen because she's come in wounded.
He seems to genuinely care.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing about this. It's
complicated.
It's complicated. There's a lot of daddy stuff that I don't like, but there is also like he does genuinely get off the stage, take Karen back, not because he wants to sleep with Karen, because he really cares what's going on with Karen.
Shout out to Danny Strong's line reading of, "Oh, this is a clue." I don't know. I rewatched it 3 times. I thought it was so funny. Oh, this is a clue.
I just before taping this episode with you, Joanna, I was talking with Mercedes McNabb, who told me that she could not say Blondie Bear the way that Joss wanted her to say Blondie Bear, like that she said it so many times before she said it the way he wanted it to be heard. And so now thinking about this, when you say like, oh, that line reading was blah, 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 I'm like, wow, I wonder how many things Joss was like, this needs to be said in this particular way so that it hits. I'm not necessarily this thing, but it didn't occur to me before having that conversation with her that like, wow, as a director, you might be super invested in like the particular sound of a line.
If I ever meet Danny Strong, which I haven't, but I'm going to be like, how many times did Joss Whedon make you say, oh, this is a clue? I hope it was many. No, I hope it wasn't just for poor Danny's sake. Danny nailed it in one.
Yeah, that's true. That's
no
true.
disrespect to Mercedes.
Both Danny,
but like Danny got it in one. One take strong. That's what they call him.
I'm glad that you brought up clues, Joanna, because we are now at the mansion, and not only is Jonathan talking about clues, but Riley is standing in the fucking background with a notebook, jotting things down in like, it's not a trench coat, but it might as well be a trench coat. And so I've asked Jenny to create this for all of us. Detective Riley. You're welcome. You didn't know you needed it, but you did. He's just like really taking one out of Angel's book on this detective work.
Shirtless basketball.
Yeah.
Detecting.
Buffy's got a type.
I mean, you think that Jonathan's the one who's kind of doing an Angel impression with his like, I think he has faint eyeliner. a little bit in this
Does
episode.
he?
And he's got the leather duster.
Yeah.
Like, you know, anyway. One thing I want to say about something that I love about this episode is that Buffy is slotted into this nervous, uncertain, unconfident role.
Yeah.
Which is so hard and interesting for us to watch, I think. But what I love about this episode is like Buffy figures out what's going on by like believing in herself. Do you know what I mean? And not like eventually, and not like, yeah, the mark on the beast or whatever is a clue, and like it is, you know, Jonathan's acting quite fishy around it, and that but like her radar pings earlier, like when they fight the nest of vampires, and she's like, I don't think that was my best.
Right.
I think I'm actually better than this, you know? And I like that about her because like it's, if you want to talk about this in terms of like the gentle patriarchy daddying that Jonathan does, not so gentle, whatever, that like her journey is pushing back against that and knowing her worth is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that's on the funnier side of this too, or like that I enjoy, is that not only is she sort of like weaker, and she's noticing that, but like in strength and fighting, but she's also not able to quip.
Oh, like, yeah. Oh my God, I love that.
Right?
She's like, oh, you big blonde guy. Because we didn't really like dig into this Jonathan Spike interaction, but it's pretty good.
Yes, I want to talk about it.
Spike doesn't give like a fuck about Buffy and calls her like Betty or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. And then Jonathan has a great quip. He's like, he refers to like turning him into like instant soup mix.
Yes.
Which is the best description of like the ashy vampire stuff that happens. Like, it's so good. Yeah, Buff can't quip.
Right. It's like with power comes quipping. And when you lose that, you lose your jokes.
You got it all. Yeah.
Since we're talking about Spike, can we just like talk about this scene like in the cemetery with Spike and Buffy, where basically it's, you know, Jonathan thinks he can't get the information out of Spike, and Buffy, again, like sort of realizing her power, is able to get it out of Spike. But the last time we saw Spike and Buffy interact, it wasn't Buffy, it was Faith.
Oh.
And Joanna, I don't know if you remember the scene in the Bronze with Buffy and Spike / Faith and Spike, but it's really, really sexual. And she says things like, I will ride you at a gallop.
Yep.
You know the one. We all know it deep down. And so this is really the first time that we've seen, and Spike doesn't know. He's like, he doesn't know at this point. He doesn't know, I think, until like later in the series that was Faith. And this is a really sexual moment between the two of them in the cemetery.
He's like touching her
and
so much.
And she's not moving.
I know, guys.
Just
like complicated Spike feelings, because like Jonathan's right when he's like, you're being creepy, stop touching her, and like shoves him away. I'm like, yeah, that's right, don't do that. I don't enjoy watching it at all.
But also if you're following the arc, I mean it is, but is it? Because the last time that he has seen Buffy, she had him up against a fucking wall and was literally delivering an erotic novel to his face.
Very good.
And I think he's been thinking about it ever since.
But this episode is complicated in that way that we talked about at the beginning, where it's like it's continuity and it's not, because like at the beginning he calls her Betty because like she's not like, she's the Slayer, but she's not like the Slayer.
True.
Jonathan is like the leader, and so like in the first interaction he doesn't really like care about her. And then the second one, you're right, he's like touching all over her.
And like Jonathan has to break it up.
Yeah, it's true.
So interesting. Where even are we? The twins? That's the note that I...
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Adam knows it's a lie. That's probably a thing.
We get an Adam scene. I took a nap. The end.
Yep. And then Jonathan is staring into... Jonathan's taking a page out of Angel's book with this fire.
But yes. But Adam... there's no Sartre, but you know, like whatever. But Adam does say something that's, you know, he's like, these kinds of magics are corrosive and they're chaotic and it'll just take care of itself, basically.
Right.
I don't need to write this wrong. It's going to fix itself.
Right.
And I like the chaos. So let's just sit back and watch.
Yeah.
But it's true. This happens all the time. Like whenever we see these alternate dimensions, sort of like Anya Wish episodes or whatever, like there are consequences that things tend to, I mean, Xander says as much when like Riley's asking them about spells later and, you know, he's like, oh, but it comes with a catch or whatever. And Xander's like, yeah, they tend to.
They tend to do that. Yeah.
They tend to do that. Yeah.
Which is also like, again, good Xander episode.
Great Xander line.
Just like there being like, man, I've been here 4 seasons now. I've seen this episode before in a different form.
So the monster comes in and attacks Tara. And this is maybe where we should talk about Tara, because I haven't talked about my Tara thoughts.
Yes. So before the monster attacks Tara, I just want to there's at least one thing I want to say, which is that Willow and Tara are walking together with Buffy. And nobody has said anything. It's like, this is the episode where it's like couples.
Yeah.
And it's like they're always there now as a couple, but it's not acknowledged yet. And Willow says to Tara, Tara says to Willow, I'll see you tomorrow. And there's this awkward pause and like Buffy's there. And then she's like, okay. And then they leave. So just like awkward sexual tension is a building for these two. Now we can get to the monster. I can't let a moment go by, Joanna, where
Why would you
just bathe in the awkwardness of two queer women wanting so badly to just make out and not being able to do it. I mean, whatever. We know they pretty much slept together last episode with that really intense sweaty spell, but still.
There's some smooches to be done.
There's some smooches.
Shout out to Tara for like, we've seen this scene in a million Buffy episodes where like the, defenseless young woman gets attacked by the monster or whatever, but Tara can like take care of herself. She does like a little like obscurum sort of spell.
Oh my God, where she shoots like smoke out of her hands.
Yeah. And then like hides in the janitor's closet all night.
Yeah.
Okay, Tara. Like, you know what? You defended yourself.
She did. She has, I think we may have mentioned it in a previous episode. Somebody wrote us an email a while back and they were like, when you get to Tara, will you just call out as we begin to see the difficulty she has opening doors? And so this is one of those episodes where we see it. And I think we're going to see it more. Oh my God. Tara struggles with doors.
Just like the aliens in the movie Signs.
Oh my God.
Tara does not know how to open doors.
She can shoot smoke out of her hands, but open a door.
Is so funny.
Not always. And what happens to Tara with this monster, I think is really like a character development thing for Tara. Again, like sort of we're in this weird universe, but we're still getting truths about the characters, because none of the Scoobies that we have had to date would have hidden in a closet overnight because they were so terrified and would be in bed. Like, Tara is really vulnerable and she's really powerful in a lot of ways, but she's really vulnerable in ways that I don't think we see from any of the other Scoobies yet. Mm-hmm. And in ways that I think that as humans we can identify with.
Well, like when they were new, like Willow and Cordelia were basically in a janitor's closet all night, right?
They sure were, Joanna. Thanks for bringing that up.
So, it's just she's new to it. But yeah, you're right. She's very vulnerable. And watching Willow be concerned for her and all of that is interesting. Tara is a really complicated thing. Like, I know that Tara is a character that I struggle with because I really like what Tara and Willow means,
right? Of course,
for the culture, for the show. I love that like they decided to do this in a time when it wasn't like generally accepted to do this.
Yeah,
it matters. It means something. Tara as a character on her own is harder for me to like be compelled by.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. I think that like there are those two sides for a lot of people where it's like Tara as a character, not sure how I feel, but also this is a really great storyline. I really like Tara, but I didn't at first. I was more in that camp of like, I like you for the relationship you're giving me and like what have you, but I don't know how I feel about you. But I think because so many of our listeners have like just been so endeared to Tara that like this viewing for me, I'm like seeing through my eyes, but also their eyes. And so I have like a very, very big soft spot for her.
Yeah. I will say that every time I watch again, I like Tara more.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't like her at first. Mm-hmm. And like that's changed a lot. I also happen to really like Amber Benson, who plays her, just as like a human. So like that helps, warm me up to Tara. But
totally.
But who I really love always and everything is Anya.
Yeah.
And Anya has this great scene where like Buffy goes because she wants to like look through some of Xander's stuff, is what she says. But really she wants to like ask Anya, demon questions.
Right.
Vengeance demon questions.
Right.
We get a lot of good set dressing in this because there's like so much Jonathan shit everywhere.
Oh my God, trading cards.
Trading cards, Dark Horse Comics, which, by the way, Jane Espenson has written a Jonathan Dark Horse comic that is a prequel to this episode.
Wow.
So
it's like how Jonathan got this, like did the spell?
I haven't read it. I just like, this is just trivia. I know
Cool.
that there's a Jonathan issue that Jane wrote for Dark Horse that exists. But Dark Horse is, of course, the company that like puts forth all the Buffy stuff, or did. They don't anymore, right?
I don't know. The new stuff is Boom.
Yeah, I think Dark Horse had it for a while. Anyway. Right. But Anya's clear, I don't want you here stuff is so funny.
It's so funny, especially countered with her trying to read from the script of being a human.
Yeah.
Right, come on in. It will be fine, or like whatever she says.
She's like, so can you go now or what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Right. She also says, this is where we get the shrimp. You've already made a reference to it, Joanna, but like she's off on her shrimp metaphor. Metaphor? No. What do you call it when you're giving an example of
like
something?
An
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's on her shrimp analogy. You could have a world with all shrimp. You could have a world with no shrimp. You could have a world where you make somebody fall in love with President McKinley, which I thought was really an odd thing. And I looked it up because I was like, what is this a reference to? President McKinley was assassinated, but I couldn't find anything saying that his assassin was assassinator. I think I like it better. Was like in love with him or whatever. So I don't know where that line came from or if anyone knows more than I do, but
that just sounds like to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like them trying to establish that Anya has lived a long time.
Right.
She's got McKinley jokes. Whatever that means, you know. Yeah, but so then we go back to Giles' house, and this is where we get all this undermining of Buffy as a leader.
Right.
We get more shrimp jokes.
Oh my God. Pawns and prawns. I think it's my favorite joke of the whole episode.
It's very
It
good.
makes me like guttural laugh every time. It's the delivery too. Like it's a hilarious, ridiculous line, but fucking Emma Caulfield's
nails it.
Oh my God. Nails it.
I love her.
I think that Jonathan may be doing something so that he's manipulating the world, and we're all like his pawns or prawns. Stop with the shrimp. I am trying to do something here.
It's also where we learn about the Matrix, that
Yep.
Jonathan has starred in the Matrix, which just really roots you right into the time period.
And this is another, like, this is what I think of the writing style of this episode. This is why I think that McKinley thing might be a throwaway, because we find out, like, he killed the master and the mayor. Okay,
Yes.
these are things we know. And he coached the women's U.S. soccer team to, like, you know, like, we all watched him do that. Like, that's just, I just think it's like a random thing thrown in there or whatever. When Giles tells her she's out of her depth, it's one of the most painful things I've ever seen.
Because it feels like I don't know that we've ever seen Giles speak like this. Well, or
he's tutted her before, you
but
know what
like
I mean?
that, it
Not
feels
that
bad.
Yeah, it feels very bad. And it underlines like the real insidious like stuff that Jonathan is accomplishing by putting Buffy below him in this universe. And so then making all these people around her. It's like funny when Anya says it, but it like really hurts when Giles says it.
Yeah,
You know what I
100%.
mean?
And it also like, you know, at the beginning of this episode, we were talking about how like, well, it's not like, it is patriarchal, but it's also like kind of, you know, there's not a lot of like sexualized stuff. So that's good. But it does beg the question of like, why couldn't Jonathan have had a world where he was respected and loved, but also there was a woman that was more powerful than him? A question as old as time.
I think
Joanna.
I just realized that I'm on a podcast, so I can't just like silently shake my head at you.
No, I don't know. I think our listenership knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah. I know you already made reference to the swimsuit calendar, but I gotta like shout out Tony Stewart Head's delivery of like, no, yes. Very good line delivery.
We all are bi for Giles, and we know that Giles is also super bi, even in this universe.
Yeah. So then Jonathan and Buffy are going to go after the monster. We get that Spike scene that you referenced.
Also, I want to say Riley comes to Buffy's defense.
Maybe one of my favorite Riley moments of all time.
Mine too. And that's why I feel, you know, I rag on Riley a lot.
Yeah.
So I do try to say the moments when I appreciate him. And this is good, especially the line is written really brilliantly, I think, where he's like, this sounds absolutely unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
But also, I'm getting to know this person and I trust that she knows what's up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to help her out.
Yeah.
Which, like, fuck yeah, Riley. Put a couple points in
Only
your bin.
Riley really believes in her. I wrote in all question mark, all caps. But that's the thing is like, let's give Riley his full credit and say like, as Buffy is, the truth keeps sort of struggling to come to the surface with Buffy. Then that is like a fundamental truth for Riley that is counter to the narrative that Jonathan's created,
right?
But it's coming to the surface because it's the core belief that he has in her.
It's interesting too. This is like a total tangent or like side thing, but usually the way we're taught about universes is that if you change one thing in the universe, everything else will change.
Yeah.
So this is like the exception to that rule because really nothing has changed except that Jonathan is infiltrated into every memory, into everything. But like, no, most of the relationships are the same.
Right.
Like, everybody still knows each other the way they knew each other in the other universe.
It's not like, The Wish or whatever.
Right,
So,
exactly.
We get the great Xander don't speak Latin in front of the books line.
Oh my God, I love it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play it.
You can't just go Librum Incendere and expect...
Xander don't speak Latin in front of the books.
It's good. Actually, when I heard this line, Joanna, I'm sure you remember being on some episode with me where you were like, we used to play this game about notable lines in Buffy. And I thought of you in this one.
It's true.
I thought this might be one. I'm still trying to play the game.
It's one. You're always a winner when you play that game. You can only be a winner. And so we're cutting back and forth between like the Scoobs figuring stuff out. Anya's got a great line where like Willow's like, Buffy was right. Anya's like, doesn't sound correct, does it? Love you, Anya. We cut to like Jonathan and Buffy like fighting over this cavern thing and the monsters there and whatever. And like, I really do love this scene because it's like, Jonathan won't want to let, but if you hurt the monster, Jonathan loses his powers. And he won't want that. So obviously, like, he'll want to stop Buffy.
Right.
But that's not what he does.
Right.
He wants to stop this monster because it was not his intention when he, like, put this spell together. The, like, part where you, like, think he's going to push her into the cavern, then he doesn't, he, like, holds her back or whatever is fine and cheesy. But the part where I get kind of emotional is, like, she's like, I don't know how to do this. And he's like, oh, you do. You did. You'll remember. Like,
I know. Oh, my God. I just got the chills when you said the line to me.
It's, like, really... That's why this episode is so complicated.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's very endearing and lovely and supportive, especially just coming off that scene where like no one was supporting her.
Yeah.
And I think it's like to give Jonathan maybe more credit than he deserves. It's him realizing like, like the other monstrous thing that he's done to Buffy. She has to underline it a bit more for him when the episode ends. But like, he took her support network from her.
Right.
And he's giving it back to her. Yes, in that patronizing way that he's sort of done, but no.
I don't know. This moment
feels
doesn't.
Different.
It does. It feels different, and actually is. Earlier, I was like, I believe Jonathan when he says he didn't know about the monster, and I didn't even realize. But this is why, right? Like this is why I believe him because you can see that like any other like villain or whatever would have been like, fucking see ya, keeping my power, thanks.
Yeah.
But it is like once he recognizes sort of the implications of what he's done and what it's done to Buffy and like all this stuff, like he's like, okay, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
We're about to do a big shift. You mentioned this at the top with Jonathan's hair going from up to down. I don't know what Kate's going to be talking about, but I've just realized we haven't even heard from Kate yet. So let's hear if Kate has anything to say about the hair, the wardrobe, whatever. Kate, we've missed you. Hello.
It's time for our friend Kate to give you the Buffy fashion update.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Jonathan Fashion Watch. What an episode. We get to see our main boy, Danny Strong, in so many good looks in this episode. Now, there is a point where he's talking to Buffy when they're sitting at the cafe, when, the girl, Karen with a K, comes up to get her book signed, where he's wearing a suit that doesn't really fit. It's a little bit too big, but I'm willing to let that slide for so many other of his choice looks. Honestly, he's got so much style in every scene, but the fact that we get a peek at that calendar, yum. It's hard to remember what anyone else is wearing in this episode. It's fine. I mean, Buffy's hair, it is Buffy. It's Buffy, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. Buffy's hair is looking, it's just so weird, like Buffy, kind of a name. Anyway, her hair does look amazing. Everyone's does. I actually did some research because I like to do that every once in a while on these fashion watches and found out that Danny Strong brought his own personal hairstylist to the set for this. And it's not surprising. He just brings so much to this show. In every moment this season, it's like he's challenged himself to bring out performances that might not have even been in the script. He just brings, oh God, it's just amazing. It's amazing to watch a master at work. And you know, this episode, Superstar in particular, really shows it off. It also shows off that white tuxedo, which I wish we got to see more of. I'm ready for a swing revival. I think it's time. If everyone's going to look as good as Jonathan does, oof, yeah, I'm ready. Okay, gotta calm down. Until next time, I'll see you in line for the book signing. Ugh, do you think he's going to wear that sweater?
That was our friend Kate. She gave you the Buffy fashion update.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate Leth. A dream, a wonder, as always.
A walking legend.
Truly, truly, a legend among us. So here we are at what I've called the couples picnic. And I think that's because I'm just getting increasingly excited about Willow and Tara being like positioned as a couple with the couples. Xander has a line that's really sad, I thought. I mean, and also Xander's looking pretty good at this picnic scene. I was like, oh, Xander, I have tingly feelings. But he says, like, you know, when Jonathan's reality was sort of here, I felt like respected and I felt like this tingly feeling, and now I just feel empty again. And it's like there's no focus put on the line at all. But I was just like, oh God, like this is kind of an insight into, we haven't really like looked too much at Xander because the show hasn't yet done its deeper dive. But like, you know, Xander's like living in his parents' basement. He's not going to college. We've talked about it a little bit, but have sort of forgotten it in all the hubbub of season 4. Yeah. But this tiny little line just reminded me, like, oh yeah, this guy, like he loves Anya and they have a good thing going, but like he really doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and he's lost.
Xander's towny life and what's going on with it.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Also, Riley immediately counters with like, I just felt really too tall.
Yeah. Which is how I feel all the time, personally. And then as Buffy walks away to go talk to Jonathan with his like bad stripes and bad hair, I think it's Anya who says like, well, then who really did star in The Matrix? Like they haven't remembered Keanu yet. They're still getting their memories back about Keanu.
One of the last memories to restore, it turns out, is Keanu
That's just
Reeves.
like Keanu, I gotta say. And then they have this great conversation about like, I mean, you know, sometimes it feels a little like episode of the weeky, like, you know, whatever, when they have this like big tied up with a bow conversation at the end of an episode. But like, just Jonathan talking about like being up in the bell tower, that ability, as I said, because the Jonathan stuff is plotted the way it is, the ability to call back to an episode last season that probably no one has forgotten because there was so much conversation around it. It's not like you need to be reminded that Jonathan was like up in the bell tower sort of thing. And then he's like, I genuinely didn't know about the monster. Like, I feel bad about it. And then Buffy is so great. She's like, that's not the part people are upset about. Or like, yeah, that's bad, but that's not the bad part.
Yeah.
The bad part is like, she said, people don't like feeling like puppets in your little like show or whatever. People don't like being gaslit. Like, this is an episode about gaslighting. And Buffy, there's an episode, I think it's in season 6. That's an even, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, just vaguely in season 6, there's an even stronger, let's gaslight Buffy and like try to tear apart everything she believes like is true about herself episode. It's a storyline I like. There's actually also a really good episode of The Magician season 1. Ooh. I know you love The Magician.
I do.
I do too. Where they put Quentin is in an insane asylum, but really it's just in his mind.
Right.
And it's like, you were never a magician. You know what I mean? And so like this, it's a trope. You know, I'm sure tvtropes.com has like a whole page on like, you know, the gaslight episode or whatever, but like trying to undermine what people's core identity is or their belief in themselves like that. And that's the real monster of like what Jonathan did in this episode. And the real beauty of those episodes when our heroes sort of emerge from that is like a stronger connection to their core belief of who they are. And the idea that like, you know, this is the thing is like Buffy's Scooby sense or Spidey sense the whole time is like there's something wrong because this is not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and so needing to access that belief in yourself. I just think it's really, really interesting storytelling.
Yeah, well fucking said, Joanna. I told you were so smart about TV. I want to say, you mentioned like, well, it's kind of like a bow, you know, there is a little bit of an element of like bow at the end maybe, but I think what's interesting and something I didn't realize until you were talking about Earshot is that what's kind of cool is that Earshot could have been an episode that you looked at as like, oh, this kind of had a bow at the end, right? We have the scene between the two of them where Buffy's explaining to Jonathan like yada, yada, yada. But the fact that then we come back, it's like, well, even if there is a quote bow at the end in this series, it's going to take it further. Like it's going to say like, yeah, but what did happen? What did happen to that kid? Did he just get better like that? No, like there's more progress. There's more like journeying that has to happen.
And they don't do that a lot of the time, but they do, you know, like I think of Amy similarly. Like Amy is used similarly, you know, or like Harmony, you know, speaking of Mercedes, like, you know, these are characters that you revisit, characters that you didn't think the show is going to bother to explore in depth, that the show does decide to explore in depth.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying I could have used more Clea Duvall or something like that. No,
listen, couldn't we all, Joanna?
Couldn't we all? And then it ends with, okay, so I had a revelation in this final moment, which is like Buffy and Riley are like talking and making out, which is like, I don't know why it took me until this episode to figure it out. Maybe because I was thinking about the episode that follows it, but like, Buffy really fucked up my idea of like what you're supposed to do when you kiss someone, because Sarah Michelle Gellar does this like terrible, I mean, like I'm trained to think it looks really sexy, but this like dolphin-y undulation thing when she like kisses him, and I'm just sort of like, it's a whole thing. It's like kissing with your body is something that you do until, not that you don't kiss with your body, listeners at home, like, or
just sit very, very still.
Right? Isn't that how
you do it?
Isn't that how one kisses? I'm just saying, like, Sarah does this whole thing that I just thought was like what everyone does, and then later realized, no, I don't even know if I ever even tried it. I was just watching and I was like, this looks actually strange. But I remember watching many, 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 many episodes of Sarah doing this, and it didn't strike me as strange.
Do you know if she does this with David or other humans who she kisses, or is it because I've noticed, I feel like anytime we see a scene between Buffy and Riley, it seems like Sarah Michelle Gellar is like really working hard on her end to bring it to a sexy place.
That might be it. I didn't even think about that. That like because like, no, I actually think she does do it with David, but I never noticed it because I was like in it.
Yeah, because
and here I'm like
returning.
Yeah, and here I'm like, I don't feel it, so I'm just like observing the blocking, and I'm like, that's bizarre looking.
In my mind, and perhaps someday we'll get to talk to Mark and find out what was happening in his mind in a polite, respectful way. But like, it reads to me like Mark was worried about disrespecting Sarah in some way. Like, it feels like he's so polite. It feels like he is the character of Riley as an actor.
Yeah.
So he's being so polite.
Yeah.
Because he sits, you want to talk about somebody who's not moving when he kisses. He does not move. It's like his head turns and like he's kissing, but his like arms are still, his legs are still.
I gotta watch this again.
Yeah, you should, because I mean, you didn't get to talk about the sex scene where he takes a boot off of her foot sexily, but these two struggle. They struggle with the chemistry. And because we've seen Sarah be sexy with literally anything that she touches, I want to say that it's a Mark Sarah thing.
I think that's right. I didn't even think about that. Because it's not an issue with James or Eliza.
Right.
Or David.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we've really led ourselves right to Jenny Owen Young's here, who's going to talk to us all about the Sexual Tension Awards.
Sexual Tension Award.
Hello and welcome to the Sexual Tension Awards for Season 4, Episode 17, Superstar. I am Jenny Owen Youngs. I don't know if you remember me from before, from all the other episodes of the podcast, but I am here today to tell you about some sexual tension. Here we go. Your nominees for this very special episode are Jonathan Levinson and Anya Jenkins. Oh my God, have you ever seen anybody more ready to get down than Anya? Jonathan. Next up, we have Jonathan Levinson and Riley Finn. Riley's thing with Jonathan is much more subtle. I think he kind of like wants to be Jonathan. But sometimes you think you want to be someone, but then later you sort of figure out that you actually want to date them. So I'm putting in for that. Thirdly, we have Jonathan Levinson and Rupert Giles, because wow, he has the Jonathan Levinson swimsuit calendar in case you didn't notice, and that just speaks volumes. And finally, for people who are unwilling to participate in this charade of Jonathan being the object of everyone's desire, we have a 3-way nomination of Willow, Tara, and the fine, fine, fine art of collaging. If you'd like to cast your vote in our beautiful STA democracy, please visit us at BufferingCast, where we'll be posting a poll for you, our devoted listeners, to cast your very, very special votes. So please give them to us. Tell us what you think. Let's do this. Thanks for joining me for the Sexual Tension Awards.
Sexual Tension Award.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you to the democracy of Sexual Tension Awards. Cannot wait to see who you vote for. Joanna, have we done it? Did we do it?
We did it.
I think we did it. This was a joy. And I knew it would be as soon as we had the like, oh, I'm sorry, earshot. And you were like, fuck no, I love earshot. I was like, oh, I'm going to come out of this loving earshot. Like, which is exactly what has happened. But it's always a
Have
pleasure.
I changed your mind about Superstar?
Yeah. Or, oh my God, I said earshot like 8 times.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, you have.
I didn't know if I also changed your mind about earshot. I'm like, maybe I'm just here to like alter Kristin's reality to my own.
Oh my God.
You know.
No, you did. You changed my mind on Superstar, not earshot. And I knew you would, because I think almost any episode of this show, like if you do a deeper dig, but this one really seems to have a lot of chops. And
I think it does, and I think it will only grow in your listeners' estimation the further along you get in the series.
Right. And that's the thing, right? And that's the thing that I don't even really truly carry. So I'll carry that with me as we move into further seasons. You'll have to come back again and again. And
please.
You know how much I love talking to you.
I love being here.
Everybody loves hearing from you. Just in case we have any new humans who have not heard you on our podcast or somehow have not heard you on one other million podcasts that you do, tell them where to find you.
Right now you can hear me on 3 other podcasts. You can hear me on Little Gold Men, which is Vanity Fair's award season podcast, which we do all year round. You can hear me on Vanity Fair's Still Watching podcast. Right now we are watching True Detective. Soon we will be watching Game of Thrones. And speaking of which, you can hear me on A Storm of Spoilers, which is actually not very spoilery, but that is a show that we started about Game of Thrones and is now just like whatever we want to talk about. So
you've done a Buffy episode, right?
We sure have. Yeah. So
all the places. Joanna also writes for Vanity Fair, which is a thing that is awesome. I love everything that you write over there.
Yes, you can find me on vanityfair.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at Joe Wrote This.
Hell yeah. You know me probably, but just in case you don't, I'm Kristin Russo. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Kristin Noeline. That's KRISTIN Noeline. That's also the spelling you can use to find my website, where you can learn about the work that I do with LGBTQ communities. And of course, you can find Buffering the Vampire Slayer on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook at BufferingCast. You can also check out all the things that are going on with us at bufferingthevampireslayer.com. We're only about a month out from our New York City prom, which is sold out. But we're very excited to see those of you who are coming. And don't worry, we're going to do so many more proms forever. So you'll all get the chance to come to one. Joanna, I hope you come to a prom.
I want to come to a prom.
We need to make it so that you get to a prom.
San Francisco prom.
Hell yeah. Oh God, everybody in San Francisco was just like, yes! Yeah. And of course, you can support us over on our Patreon page. You can find that at bufferingthevampireslayer.com. And I think that's it I'm supposed to say, until next time, and then we're supposed to howl. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Until next time.
Have
you been practicing?
No.
Wow. Hey guys, before we jump into the song, I want to give you a heads up. You're going to hear So many voices. Oh my gosh. Most of them you're going to recognize. You're going to be like, wow, hey, it's Bess Rogers back as Willow. Oh, hey, it's the original Hawkeye with glasses, Chris Farron, back as Xander. But who is that we hear voicing Giles? Hark! What? Dulcet tones through yonder earbuds break. Why? It is none other than friend of the pod. Actually, my friend and yours. The handsomest man in all of podcasting, Mr. Rishikesh Hirway, joins us today in his premiere performance as the voice of Rupert Giles. You're welcome. And thanks, Rishi.
There goes Jonathan, he's so cool. Protector of Sunnydale High School, always ready with great advice for slaying and also my love life. There goes Jonathan, he's so fine. Defeated the mayor that one time, crushed the bones of the master too. There's nothing that he can't do.
I don't even mind that my girlfriend says his name.
Protector of Sunnydale High School.
When we're lying in my bed, I mean, who could really
slaying and also my love life.
I don't even mind that my girlfriend says his name.
Defeated the mayor that one time.
When we're lying in my bed, I mean, who could really blame?
There's nothing that he can't do.
How can I choose?
There goes Jonathan, he's so cool.
Mr.
Protector of Sunnydale High School.
Don't make me choose.
Always ready with great advice for slaying and also my love life.
Master of
There goes Jonathan, he's so fine.
Fighting
defeated the mayor that one time.
Picture of
crushed the bones of the master too. There's nothing that he can't do. He's the perfect height at 5'6". I adored him in The Matrix. Love his book and every song he sings. And just when I thought I was done with men, there goes Jonathan, he's so cool. Protector of Sunnydale High School, always ready with great advice for slaying and also my love life.
I don't even mind that my girlfriend says his name. When we're lying in my bed, I mean,
Done with men.
how can I
Love his book and every song he sings. And just when I thought I was done with men.
Hi, I'm Dana Schwartz, and this is Rise or Die, the official companion podcast for Peacock's original series, Those About to Die. On this podcast, I go behind the scenes with the show's cast and creators to learn how they brought their brutal vision of Rome to life. I talked to acclaimed director and executive producer Roland Emmerich.
When I saw the first race, I was like giddy.
Actor Ewan Ryan.
For an actor, that's a dream. Although you do get a lot of sand in your sandals.
And so many more.
You helped summon those ghosts back onto that stage.
Every day when I went to set, I was giggling about what I saw.
I think it's going to be a breathtaking thing.
People will freak out.
Rise or Die launches on July 18th. Watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Ah, the web tour. Those that both created and were created by the threads disentangle from the fringes to feast on the very thing that spawned them.
What's that, City? This is how you deal with weird! No! Do not harm my children!
Oh, you lost a feather. Can I keep it?
No, you can't force me to.
Do you know what lies within nothing?
Rocket's in trouble at Casa. Can we turn on the windshield remotely?
No, she could lose her job as an Akassar.
I don't fear Vehar.
No, but you fear me. If you intend to trick me, I will not hesitate to sever the oath bond entirely.
Why didn't you help me? Coward! I don't have a parachute! I don't like free falling!
Counterbalance, a high fantasy audio drama. Season 2, coming 15th of October 2023. Learn more on trilunas.com.